Well, welcome to another episode of Gallagher's World with former elected official Dennis Gallagher. My name's Clay Vagoda, a longtime friend of Dennis's, and today we're going to get into something a little different than we have in the past. Dennis, I want to talk about your calligraphy and the mystique that has come up around Dennis Gallagher's calligraphy. I remember the first time we met and watching you do your writing and detail of it really was one of those things that struck me. And so I know it's always been a big part of who and what has been important in your world, so I thought we'd talk about that today.
Well, I just, Clay, want to say thank you for giving me a chance to talk about calligraphy. And now, I was not there when John Hancock signed the Declaration of Independence, but I do remember the nuns at Holy Family School, where I attended here in North Denver, talking about how important handwriting is. And they said you have to sit up and you gotta have your back straight and your arm able to move completely as you do the writing so that it's graceful. And I just want to let you know that that made a deep impression upon me. I think my first grade teacher was Sister Marcellus. I hope I'm remembering that correctly. But at Holy Family School in those days, which was a little store that they had purchased right there on Tennyson Street and 44th, the desks were rather ancient. And up in the right-hand corner, there was an inkwell, a little round hole for an inkwell, and a lot of the inkwells were still there. And they had not removed them from the people whom they purchased these desks from. And I was very curious about the inkwell, and I asked Sister Marcellus, what's this for? Oh, that's where you put the ink and you put your quill in there, and then that's how you write. I said, oh, I wish you'd teach me. And so I was the only one of the whole class, as I recall, who she taught, and I'll teach you a little later today about how you're light on the upstroke and heavy on the downstroke of the ink, and that's what makes the shading for what we call copperplate writing. And she taught me copperplate. I was the only one in the school, I think, who got interested in copperplate and other types of calligraphy. Now, the big thing in these days was the fountain pen. You had to have a fountain pen. Now, I think I'm the only one in this vicinity who has a fountain pen, because everything is ballpoint now. And ballpoint pens were verboten in my school. Because number one, they leaked ink onto the shirts and dresses of all the students, as do fountain pens today. But fountain pens had a little top. You could screw it on, keep it in your pocket, and it made for a very nice handwriting. And handwriting is so important. Back to John Hancock. If John Hancock were alive today and he signed the Declaration of Independence in the usual hen-scratching scrawl of most people, unreadable, unintelligible, unrecognizable, he would not have had to fear the British coming and hang, drawing, and quarter him for being a rebel in the United States and denying the king and the royals. And so anyway, I'm so glad. And even the word John Hancock is a word which means put your John Hancock there. That's the signature. Put the signature there and write clearly. And I'll never forget talking to my own beloved son, Daniel Patrick Gallagher, in whom I am well pleased. Where have I heard that before? And I said, now, we were talking about the ballot, and we always talk about our ballot and fill them out together. And I said, now be sure to sign neatly. And he said, Dad, if I sign neatly, they're not going to think it's me. And I said, go ahead and sign it sloppily, the way you sloppily signed it. I am not surprised that county clerks around the United States have a quandary when it comes to recognizing people's signatures, because there really aren't even a signature, they're just a scratch. When I'm at the coffee shop and I watch everybody buy their coffee in front of me, I am the only one who uses a cursive signature. The rest of them have an initial and then a scratchy line and then an initial and a scratchy line. And this a few years back when Gary Hart was our senator, Gary had a G and then a line and an H and a line. And I told him, I said, you're losing a lot of name identification by your signature. And you know, the frank is always up in the right-hand side of the envelope when you get your congressional mail. And that goes all the way back to the initial founding of the Republic, when members of Congress would actually just sign their name for the stamp. And I said, you've got a G for Gary and then an H for Hart, and nobody can read your name. And I said, remember what Marshall McLuhan said, the medium is the message. You've got to be able to read your signature. And when people wonder whose scratching is this up in the right-hand corner of the envelope, they don't know who it is, somebody GH. And so he went back to the office, redid his signature, and just printed it. And GARYHART, which was fine, at least people could read it. And then when he's running for president of the United States and getting in all that trouble as he did, the Camille Paglia wrote an article about him in a magazine, the name of which I can't remember. But she went back and all the way to high school when he used to ride in a convertible down top car on Saturday evenings in his white pants, and he always had to have a towel for the car because he didn't want to get his white pants dirty. And then she also said, on this certain date, whenever I advised Gary Hart to have his signature legible so people could read it, she implied he must have had a tremendous psychological epiphany of some sort to be able to have a signature that was so different. Then he changed his signature. And I have written several times that Camille, he didn't have a psychological epiphany. He just was talking to me, and I told him he was losing name identification over it, as any politician would want when you're having your signature written on the upper right-hand corner for the postage, as it is in the United States Congress to this very day. So I just, calligraphy, kalos graphos, beautiful writing in ancient Greek. And I mean, I minored in Latin and Greek at Regis, and then I taught Latin and Greek for 20 years at Regis. So I got to see a lot of Latin and Greek manuscripts, and the handwriting of those ancient Romans, a lot of it was somewhat unintelligible, but much of it was beautifully, and it was indeed calligraphy. And I just think, Clay, when you learn a cursive script, you learn how to connect things in life, just as you connect the letters. I do think handwriting is so important, and I find it's very important because when I write a letter, then I take a deep breath and I let my breath dry the letter. It's my final contribution to the message that I'm sending with whatever the letters are implying. And so a little part of me, my breath, goes into that letter, and it's retained and carried as the message is sent to whomever I'm sending the message. And so it's just so important. I can't tell you that Cicero had a wonderful quote, cor ad cor loquitur, heart speaks to heart. And when you get a handwritten note, you actually, it's from the heart of the person, that you took enough time not to use a machine to be able to communicate how you feel, but your own very system, your own handwriting, your own movement of your hand to be able to communicate an important message to someone whom you love or who is beloved. So that's why I think handwriting is so important. I'm praying for the day when cursive comes back and we return to handwriting that even a county clerk might be able to read on a ballot.
So Dennis, I know that people receiving your handwritten calligraphy notes has always been a big deal. I remember when my wife sent you soda bread the first time and she got this note back and she was just astonished by how much time and effort had gone into it. And she still has that thank you note from you put away in a drawer. And I remember when we were at the auditor's office when you'd send a thank you to one of the employees for doing something, and they'd get these very elaborate notes and they'd post them on the walls of their by their desk because they were so it meant so much to them. And I think that's part of what has made this mystique about Dennis Gallagher, is the fact that you give this amount of time to actually thanking people and putting that piece of yourself out there. And I'm just wondering, in politics, how did that play for you?
Well, Clay, that's a very important point. And I learned early on that sending a handwritten thank you note in calligraphy to people who donated to you, they were shocked because they had never received, a lot of times people will sign their first name. Thank you so much for donating to the campaign, Gary. And then that's it. But I remember reviewing many of the letters that I saw from John Kennedy, and he always put a little personal note, not necessarily in calligraphy, but in his scratchy, scrawly handwriting. But I think what the message is of a handwritten calligraphy is that you, again, as McLuhan said, the medium is the message. The message there is not just the words of appreciation, but the fact that you took a little extra time to sign that letter, not only in your calligraphic signature, your John Hancock, so to speak, but you then added a little, I always added a little note to every letter, just thank you so much for approaching me about this particular subject. We'll try to keep you posted on how it's going. People were quite surprised and would comment to me as I would learn to grow in wisdom and grace in politics. And I always remember that, and I try to pass that on to people. Yes, as I grew in wisdom and hopefully in grace in politics here in North Denver, I soon realized that people got a kick out of receiving calligraphed, handwritten messages of appreciation or whatever it was that I was sending. And so I always tried to add an extra line, even to letters, to thank people for writing about a particular subject and taking time to communicate with me. And people began to comment to me in the stores and things. Oh, I got your note and thank you for taking the time. I showed it to my children. They're going to take up calligraphy now too. And so I do think it's so important. Again, the medium is the message. That's what Marshall McLuhan said to us at Regis University when I taught there and when he used to come and lecture. And I had a big debate with the presidents of Regis over several terms and the deans who signed the diplomas of all of our students. Here you paid thousands and thousands of dollars with this wonderful Jesuit education. And what do you get on your diploma? A printed signature. I said, can't you pretend like you're signing autographs to admirers? And this would be such a personal message that the students could take back and show in their hometowns. Our president and dean signed my diploma. Look at it here on the wall. And to this day, Regis is still printing their signatures of the dean and the president of Regis University. It's printed. What a slap at the students after all those years and thousands of parental dollars being sent to do that. I find it is not following in McLuhan's admonition about the medium being the message.
Okay, Dennis, so how about we move to your desk and let's see how the magic's done.
To show you how important good handwriting was in the past, this is called an indenture. And let me open this up for you. This is calfskin. Notice how, and notice what it says here. This is this indenture. And notice there are little teeth marks here at the top of the two manuscripts. There was an exact copy of this manuscript that I'm holding, and if you wanted to change or pay off the loan or whatever this indenture called, you then would bring the two copies of the manuscript together and place them together, and that's where the dentures had to fit squarely together, and that's how you knew that you had the right indenture. And notice this has not only the signatures, but also the seals, which goes back to the Middle Ages when they actually signed, sealed, and delivered. But notice how beautiful this is. A copper plate. You'll notice this indenture made the first day of December. So beautifully written, heavy on the downstroke, light on the upstroke. And you'll notice there's a line crossed out here. And for that line to be crossed out, they had to cross it out on both copies of the indenture. So that's an indenture. Isn't that beautiful? And that is from the year 1881, which is quite a few years old. But notice how that indenture, and here's somebody who even added a little signature line under his signature to do that. And this is between someone named Walsh and a woman named the other name in the indenture. And so it shows you women began signing as well. And I'm so proud of this. I got it a few years ago, and it's just a beautiful old indenture. And at this point, I want to show you, this is a metal ink, a metal quill, and I've got some gallnut ink here, which I make my own. I've actually got gallnuts from the place across from the Common Grounds Coffee House. Actually had gallnuts in the tree that the wasps had planted, and every time I'd get my coffee, I'd get a few, and I've got a lifetime supply. And so I'm going to show you, this is heavy on the downstroke, light on the upstroke, heavy on the downstroke, as you saw on the indenture. And here's how you write that, you see. Here that quill crossing the so indenture, that is written in copperplate, and that's how handwriting was done for many centuries before we turned to the current scrolling. Now at this point, I want to show you some, what I call it's italic. And here I have written out a practice page 4, A through B, and then on the other side, N through Z, as they say in the old country. And so then people can practice as they go across. But let me show you how you do italic calligraphy. This is called italic calligraphy. It leans slightly to the right. Hope you lefties aren't offended. And you lean the letter a little bit to the right. Now, when you're doing italic calligraphy, you always have to hold the point at a 45-degree angle to the page. And this is exactly what I'm doing. Now you see how we come down. There's the A. And then here's B. C. D. And I'm holding it at a 45-degree angle. And then here's E. And you can even have a little tail on the E if you want to. Then here's F, G, H, I, J, and oftentimes when I'm writing, I see the ink in the letter, and then I let my breath dry the letter. This is my final contribution to the message that I'm sending, so that a little part of me is now contained in this ink, and it's sent along with me. Isn't that sort of a lovely Buddhist thought? But I think it's real nice. H, I, J, here's K. Notice what fun you can have with the tail of the K. See that, how it goes? And then we've got L, M. I'm almost finished. This takes a second, but it's certainly well worth it. The product is very much well worth it. And here's N. O, P, Q, then R, whoops, little ink, S, T, U, V, double V, and then X, and then here's a Y, and here's Z, as they say in the old country. We're the only ones that call it Z. So there we go. And then you let that dry, and then you send off your message. Let me show you something that I think is the most beautiful artwork of the Irish people. And this is a manuscript, an 8th century manuscript, 4-volume set of the New Testament and of the Testament. And these monks on the island of Iona did this manuscript, 8th century, and then after the Vikings found out they couldn't destroy everything, Oliver Cromwell had his eye on this manuscript because he wanted to get all those papist manuscripts. But here I want to show you the beautiful handwriting of the of this wonderful text, which is called Insular Uncial. Uncial comes from uncius ao, meaning an inch high. And that's how high the letters had to be in the manuscript so the monks could see what they were singing in Gregorian chant. But this is just beautiful. And here, notice there's an et here, et, and. And notice how large it is, along with the rest of this word, too. And they had no models. They didn't know you could, just maybe have a capital over here and then a smaller line and then more room for other letters. So it shows you how they set the fold for it. Let me now show you a copy of the wonderful book on the Lindisfarne Gospels, which shows you a Greek connection here. Hagios Lukos is right here on the front. Saint Luke, that means Holy Luke in the Greek language, but they just Romanized the letters. But I want you to see this wonderful page here, which shows you the opening of St. Matthew's Gospel. And here we see XRI, CHRI in Greek. But notice how there are 2 feet here and a wing and another wing. This is a bird. The CHRI, the ground figure of this page, among these ancient monks who did these wonderful manuscripts, just found a very clever way to show the first 3 letters of Christ's name in Greek, here, CHRI, and make it a bird, and then the ground figure where the 2 feet of from the R and the I are right there. I think everybody can see that now. And then this is Christus, then autem, generationem it's the generations of the listing of going all the way back in time to show that Christ was related. And it's just a beautiful manuscript. And then here's another manuscript of a book called The Irish Hand, scribes and their manuscripts from the earliest times. And again, you see how beautifully these monks did when it came to writing on calfskin. And here we see the great book of Irish genealogies from all the different families, but a beautiful hand that's being formed. And those are books that have inspired me, and I thought you'd get a kick out of them. Okay, and let me show you how it is that nobody could forge Dennis Gallagher's John Hancock when it comes to signing a Democratic ballot in North Denver. And I'm heavy on the downstroke, light on the upstroke, heavy on the downstroke, light on the upstroke, heavy on the downstroke. And then I'm just going to now quietly sign my signature as I always do. And notice what fun you can have with the J here in the middle for Joseph. Heavy on the downstroke. Can you hear that pen crossing across the page? And then my breath is drying I'll be sure to dot the I, and my breath dries the signature. And part of my breath then goes with the signature in the message. Isn't that a lovely sort of a Buddhist way to look at things? And so there you have it. Dear friends, if any of you are interested in learning a little more about calligraphy, either copperplate or italic, I would be delighted to offer a class in virtual and in virtuousness while we're doing the pandemic and we could all meet with our masks, or after the pandemic and we could maybe go to the library at Regis University some Sunday afternoon for an hour or so, and I can teach you to improve your John Hancock considerably. And so let me give you my email of where you would contact me. DG, notice 45-degree angles, LLAGHERS @gmail.com. There we are, and hope you'll let me know what you think about things or any questions you might have about calligraphy. I'm here to serve you.